Okay, so my name is Dylan Pinkins, and I'll be doing long-term and short-term effects of sleep. So while this topic, I've been playing sports since I was 4 years old. To the left here, you can see a image of me in high school winning our track and field championship for our league, and also my freshman year of Case Western, where I played football. I played different sports, football, basketball, track and field, soccer, baseball, etc., and been a huge part of my life. And so fitness and physical health has been a huge part of my life. And even though I'm not playing, intercollegiate anymore, fitness and physical health is still huge. So it kind of just made a lot of sense to, dive into sleep. And, every single person is always saying, hey, you got to get your 8 hours, make sure to eat. I mean, sleep before the game. And so, why is it actually true? Like, obviously, you feel better, but what is the science behind it? And you're trying to learn more. So that's why I chose this topic. So first, I think it's really important just to ask what is sleep. Like we know what it is. We do it every single day. But do you kind of understand how it's defined from a scientific perspective? And so sleep is a state that is characterized by changes in brainwave activity, breathing, heart rate, body temperature, and other physiological functions. Effectively, it's just the four things listed here. You have reduced activity due to a decrease in active consciousness. Sleep associated with the typical posture. For humans, it's lying down, eyes closed, whatever it might be on your back, etc. You're typically lying down. Most people are not sleeping upwards, and that's true for basically every single organism. It, of course, looks different for different people. I guess different organisms, excuse me. Sleep results in a decreased responsiveness to external stimuli. You're not conscious, and so you just naturally, are not as fully aware. And sleep is a state that is relatively easy to reverse, not to be confused with a hibernation or a coma, some sort of sound or some sort of stimuli outside can wake us up. Of course, someone, typical example is someone waking you up, touching you, or loud noises. It's why sleep important. This is kind of still somewhat of a debate for like the correct theory. There's tons of different reasons why. But out of all the different reasons and theories that I found as to why sleep is so important, it really comes down to two kind of subcategories that I'm going to call restorative principles and growth production principles. Restorative just is a lot of because of our physiological functions. Many restorative functions, such as tissue repair, protein synthesis, damage to DNA, mostly or only occur during sleep. Without sleep, our body is not going to be able to recover and restore itself. And so, of course, that is one of the reasons why we sleep. Another big one is sleep initiation, also known as adenosine. So, adenosine is a molecule found in every single cell, and it is a trigger for sleep initiation. During sleep, the body releases the adenosine from the neural system, which makes us feel more awake. Quick side note here, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, where we get our energy. ATP. ATP is actually known as adenosine triphosphate. The breaking off of that phosphate molecule to turn ATP into ADP is what typically creates most of our energy within our body, every single cell. And adenosine, of course, is one of the molecules that make up that major, energy molecule. And so as these cells are doing work, they are releasing more molecules into the extracellular fluid. As more adenosine is concentrated in the brain, that's what triggers you to sleep. Typically can be counteracted by via caffeine and coffee, but as a result, during sleep, the adenosine concentration disperses, which makes us feel more awake. Next big one is without enough sleep, a lot of body experiences, production that we don't want. Cortisol, stress, insulin, higher productions, leptin, which makes us feel full, get less of that, and ghrelin, I think it's pronounced. High levels of ghrelin means you have more of an appetite. This is how you get to overeat. We'll get into why that's bad later. As for growth production principles, one of the big ones, of course, is in young children and babies. Sleep augments brain plasticity and brain development. Kids, very young kids will sleep for like 17 to 20 hours out of a day. It's because their brain is growing in such a way that they need to do that. Of course, we still are technically growing until 25, doesn't ever really stop. But of course, it's also very true for muscle growth and growth hormones. Growth hormones, especially a lot of growth hormones specifically are most active when you're sleeping, right? And that's of course huge, regardless of what age you are. Muscle growth as well, and that when it comes to growing your muscles, one of the reasons why people often say, you can sleep for 2 hours and you can work out 10 hours, so you're not going to get as much improvement as if you say work for 5 hours or work out for 5 hours and sleep 10 hours, right? So same principle. It's when your growth hormones are working, when your muscle growth is working. And obviously, the last one's immune functions. This one's pretty obvious. We kind of just know this naturally. Um, when you sleep, you typically tend to feel better afterwards. When you feel sick, you have a cold, you have a fever. Substances produced to fight infections cause fatigue, and sleeping provides an advantage to that. So sleeping is always one of the best things you can do when you're sick. Gives you more ability to fight your diseases, and your immune system is able to move more freely because you're just expending less energy and more can be concentrated. So short-term benefits and risks. Kind of already talked about it. You heal quicker, right? When it comes to, sleep every day or getting 10 hours tonight, or I guess 10 hours is a lot, like getting 8 or 9 hours tonight versus getting 4 or 5 tomorrow, you're going to, heal quicker if you do the latter, I guess the former, excuse me. Sickness, scars, muscle soreness, injuries, etc. Big one is also mood disorders. This is a huge one for people. If you get less sleep within a week, less sleep within a week, less sleep within a month, less sleep within a day, right? You just don't feel like your usual self always. You not only you sleep deprived, you're more irritable, you're less calm. Tons of studies have proved this, but the one I want to bring up is a one where in a study where subjects who slept 4.5 hours per night reported feeling more stressed, sad, angry, and mentally exhausted. Another study, subjects who slept 4 hours per night showed decline in levels of optimism and sociability. Um, you kind of don't want to get 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night. You're gonna see this always. You're gonna just have these crazy spurts, largely due to what I already kind of mentioned before, in your mood, right? Those hormones cannot be secreted as much. You have more cortisol, you have more stress, right? You're going to feel more sad, more angry, more mentally exhausted, less calm. Another big one is something people often teach. Sleep helps with learning and the formation of long-term memories. Not getting enough sleep or enough high-quality sleep can lead to problems focusing on tasks and thinking clearly. A lot of what your teachers are now teaching you is you need to get sleep before a test. You need to get sleep, after you learn this stuff. That's what's going to help it stick. It's obviously true. So long-term consequences, kind of already alluded to this stuff before, but the big ones are obesity, diabetes, and major weight gain. You can experience, the hunger hormones I talked about. Having more insulin means you, of course, aren't tracking your blood glucose levels as much, which leads to diabetes. As a result of your hunger hormones, you're going to eat more because you feel less full and you feel more hungry, even if your body doesn't actually need the extra energy, cause you to overeat. And by nature of having less energy and by nature of not getting enough sleep, your physical activity is going to be decreased. You're just probably not working as hard, and it also over time will also affect your metabolism. So obesity, diabetes, and major weight gain are like huge factors of not getting enough sleep, and I really mean like not getting at least 7, 8, 9. Cardiovascular heart disease, this one is a major one. Inadequate sleep, even after a single night, can cause elevated blood pressure in people with pre-existing hypertension. If you don't have pre-existing hypertension, constantly not getting a lot of sleep is what's going to make that happen. It'll drastically increase your risk of heart disease, and death by heart disease is currently the biggest cause of death. One of the major ways that of course happens is a stroke. And the stroke, of course, typically, occurs because of coronary heart disease, which is, I think, is a disease where, you can't get enough oxygen-rich blood from your arteries back to your brain. Not enough blood flow to your brain causes you to have a stroke, and you unfortunately may pass away from that. That all stems from, blood pressure, and sleep is a major component of how much of that you have. So anxiety, depression, negative mental health. One study performed on thousands of high school students found increased levels of depressive mood, anxiety, behavioral problems, alcohol use, and even attempted suicide are all associated with inadequate sleep. This study was, I think, about three to 4,000 individuals as a sample size for, the high school population, right? This is a big thing. Not getting enough sleep will also affect your anxiety, depression, negative mental health. And if we learn anything in this class and just about how health is really connected, right? Not having good emotional and mental health will affect all other aspects of your life and vice versa, right? So, sleep just by nature of what you're seeing on the screen and what you've seen already shows that you really can cover a lot of bases with just having, good sleep and really, focus on being as fit and well as you possibly can. So let's go to the data really quickly here. 50 to 70 million individuals or Americans chronically suffer from a disorder of sleep, hindering daily functioning and adversely affecting health and longevity isn't too much of a surprise, but this is a huge, category of people, right? And the goal, of course, is that you aren't one of these people. You are one of these people. You need to know it immediately. This sleep is one of the easiest things to come by, but is also one of those things that plagues us the most. One of the reasons why we're such kind of a bit of an unhealthy country for some of these reasons. 80 to 90% of people with clinically significant sleep disordering breathing remain undiagnosed. Again, right, remain undiagnosed. You may or may not have sleep issues. Hopefully you don't. Someone in your family probably does. Like this is one of those things where you really want to get ahead of it quickly. And most people do not, which is why most people end up having obesity, having heart issues, dying quicker as a result of just not knowing, right? So if nothing else, right, you really need to focus on not trying to be that 80, 90% of people who have that. Hopefully you just don't have any, sleep disorder breathing, but if you do, get ahead of it quickly. And this is, of course, one of the biggest stats. 28.3% of all Americans say they average 6 hours or less. Only 41% of Americans say they average 8 hours or more a night. And this is all Americans over the age of 18. Obviously, a really interesting statistic. A lot of us are not getting sleep, which is reflective of these other numbers as well, right? Yeah, it's a crazy statistic. But yeah, so how does this affect aging? You're 15% more likely to die. Data from three large cross-sectional epidemiological studies reveal that sleeping 5 hours or less per night increased mortality risk from all causes by roughly 15%. That is all causes. That does include any sort of disease, any sort of, physical ailment, all causes for older individuals, right? You don't sleep more than 5 hours a week, that is going to happen. Of course, as you sleep more hours a week, that number gets less than, say, someone who sleeps adequately. But it's the fact that, if you're not getting sleep, you potentially can get diabetes and obesity, and that'll lead to your end. You potentially can, your cells are going to age quicker. That might affect different lacerations, etc. Your bones may not be as strong because they don't have enough time to recover, and so you'll have bone issues, and then you'll go down this path of contracting these different diseases. Like the end of the day, you're 15% more likely to have some pathway of your life in towards death prematurely. And so also just quick stat that I thought was really interesting. Empirical evidence via multiple different animal studies showed that animals deprived entirely of sleep lose all immune function and die in just a matter of weeks. As I've already talked about today, sleep is a necessity, but if you don't get sleep, as we probably can imagine, you will die, right? So the goal is, of course, not to be on that side or to be on the 15% side, but just get your 7 and 9. Really want to aim for an 8 or a 9. But this is one of those things where like you will put years on your life if you do so. So what do I believe and what should you take away from this? I kind of just brought them into three different things you should think about, three different things I'm going to take away as well. First is get help, right? If you have any genetic related issues that might hinder sleep quality or duration, get help. Sleep apnea, circadian rhythm, sleep disorders, like even if you don't know, make sure you don't have them, because sleep is just that important, right? If you have any sort of thing hindering your ability to get sleep, then you need to speak up and you need to fix it now. You need to do everything you can to counteract that. Your sleep is just vital for every part of your life. And melatonin, typical thing that people within my generation are using now. Melatonin is a substance that we just naturally have in our bodies. The typical thing is we typically don't have enough of it, or we don't have enough to trigger the effects that supplement will give us. It's pretty safe, right? You don't ever want to get to a position where you're relying on it and addicted to it, but it's a pretty safe thing to do. If this is one of those situations where you do have a disorder, you are, um, experiencing these symptoms, it's a good option. Always talk to a doctor first, but I did a little bit of like just testing to see what that's like if it's an actual drug. It's pretty safe. Third is have a plan, right? You can do everything right, eat right, fuel right, have good exercise, read well, like be hitting all your bucks. But if you're getting 4 hours of sleep a night, nothing might change. Things will actually probably get worse. If you do everything wrong, if you're not eating too well, if you're not, exercising a lot, if you're sleeping well, you'll be way better off, right? Like that's one of those things that should always stay constant. You have to have a plan. Like you know, think actively about how to do it. So last, just three reflection questions for discussion. How well do you track your own sleep? And do you average 8 hours of sleep each week? This is a question you have to like ascertain. question you have to think about. Track your hours, track your weeklies, right? This is something you have to really think about because you just need to know because that's like your baseline and your foundation moving forward. How does this presentation affect how you relate sleep to other things you do for your health, right? Like obesity, diabetes, these things are not only caused by sleep, but sleep either causes or prevents all these other things we've been talking about, right? So how does sleep interact with all the other things you're doing to help your health? Something to think about. And last, what do you want to change, right? I'm not going to sit here and say that maybe, you have to change a lot of things, but hopefully this presentation in some way helped you think differently about your own life, and hopefully it'll help you make some changes in your life that'll be better for you, i.e., getting more sleep and trying different ways to make that happen. So yeah, that was my presentation. Here are my citations, and thank you so much for your time.